Do not go to space. I'm not sure if this message will ever reach anyone. None of our previous attempts have succeeded. Still, we keep trying, even if it feels hopeless, because honestly, what else can we do? I keep holding on to the hope that one day, just one message might slip through whatever reality-bending grasp they have over this place. If these words do make it back to Earth, then let them serve as a warning. Space is not what you think it is. There's no wonder or beauty here, only terror. I learned that the hard way during my very first mission over a decade ago, back in the days of the space shuttle program. I used to be proud to call myself an astronaut. Getting picked for that first flight felt like a dream come true. I wanted to explore the great unknown, to be part of something larger than myself. But now I understand what we really are, witnesses to something we were never meant to see. Or worse, prisoners, cursed to remember glimpses of a truth that's too horrifying to bear. It all began as we left Earth's atmosphere. I was the pilot on that mission, sitting up front on the shuttle's flight deck beside the mission commander, a seasoned astronaut who'd already been to space twice before. As I focused on my instrument panel, ensuring we were on the correct trajectory and nearing proper orbit, I suddenly heard him mutter something that made my blood run cold. "Fuck," he breathed, his voice tinged with something I'd never heard from him before, pure panic. I remember them again. Confused, I looked up to see what had shaken him. I turned toward the front windows, expecting to find the familiar sight of deep space dotted with stars. But what I saw instead drained the air from my lungs. The void before us wasn't black. It was a deep, pulsing red, like a living wound stretched across the sky. And scattered throughout it were massive distant orbs, suspended in that blood-colored abyss. I couldn't move. I couldn't speak. I could only stare, paralyzed by the realization that everything we thought we knew about space was a lie. As I kept staring, I realized something horrifying. Those massive orbs scattered across the sky looked like eyes. Enormous, distant, unblinking eyes, just hanging in the blood-red void, staring straight at me. A shiver ran down my spine. I felt exposed, like they weren't just watching me, but peering into my soul. I tried to tear my gaze away, but it didn't help. No matter where I looked, they were always there. They were everywhere. Just like stars back on Earth dot the night sky, these eyes filled the red expanse. Countless, chilling, and inescapable. The more I focused on them, the more dread built inside me. They were huge, truly massive. And if they were as far away as they seemed, light years out, then the fact I could still make out their pupils through my own unaided eyes meant their actual size was incomprehensible. That thought haunts me. Because if these weren't just eyes floating alone out there, then they were just parts of something larger, something we couldn't see, something vast beyond comprehension. Eventually, the rest of the crew behind us began looking out the windows too, and their reactions mirrored mine. Stunned silence, pure terror. For minutes, no one spoke. We just sat there motionless, locked in place by the sheer magnitude of what surrounded us. Every window we turned to show the same sight, an endless red sky filled with gigantic, unsettling eyes watching us. It wasn't until the voices of the crew down in the windowless mid-deck called out to us that we finally broke out of our trance. Strapped in and unable to see out, they had no idea what was happening. The commander, shaking off the shock, managed to respond. He turned his attention back to guiding the shuttle into orbit. Something that surprised me. I'd half expected him to radio Houston and abort the mission. After all, nowhere in our training manuals did it say what to do when you stumbled into hell. "I need you guys to come up to the flight deck once we're stable in orbit," he told the mid-deck crew, his voice eerily calm. "What's going on, Commander?" one of them asked. "It's hard to explain. Just get up here when I say so." "Roger that." Then he turned to me. "Focus on your tasks," he said. Still reeling from what we'd seen, I hesitated. Aren't you going to contact Houston? Tell them what's out here. His answer chilled me even more than the eyes had. There's no point. They won't hear it. Whatever we say, whatever we try to say, they either hear something completely different or nothing at all. That can't be, I said. There has to be some way to warn them. There's nothing, he replied grimly. If Earth could perceive this, if they could see what we're seeing, they'd be reacting already. But they haven't. The live feed shows something else to them, something normal. Whatever is out here, it doesn't want to be known. A deep, helpless dread settled over me as we climbed higher, the nightmare view outside growing clearer. A few minutes later, we were officially in orbit. Once everyone had crammed into the flight deck, squeezed shoulder to shoulder in that tight, claustrophobic space, and after the initial waves of panic and nausea passed, the commander began to speak. His voice was steady, but the fear hadn't left his eyes. He explained what he knew. We were trapped, not physically, at least not in the way you'd expect, but something out here, some force, was keeping us bound to this nightmare. The same force that stopped Earth from perceiving the truth was also stopping us from leaving until the mission was officially completed. No early return, no unscheduled escape. If we didn't finish what we came to do, we couldn't go home. We didn't know exactly why, but the commander offered a theory. Leaving early might shatter the illusion. It would expose too much. Whatever was hiding this reality needed the mission to appear normal, both to us and to Earth. He also revealed that he'd seen this before, on his first mission. But he hadn't remembered it until now. As soon as he re-entered Earth's atmosphere back then, all memory of the horror was wiped clean from his mind. He'd returned to his life, blissfully unaware, until now, until the memory came flooding back at the worst possible moment. Naturally, we didn't want to believe him. We were terrified. We wanted out. We hoped he was wrong, prayed he was, and we immediately began the process to deorbit the shuttle and head home. But we couldn't. Something stopped us. It wasn't the ship. It wasn't a system failure. It was us. Our own bodies refused to cooperate. No matter how hard we tried to input the commands, pull the controls, or trigger the sequence, something kept our muscles locked. It was as if invisible hands were guiding us, puppeteering our movements. We couldn't break free. It was horrifying, violating, to feel your own body betray you. Instead of starting re-entry, our limbs moved on their own, guiding the shuttle to raise its orbit and approach the International Space Station, just as the original flight plan dictated. We were trapped in space and inside ourselves. When Houston checked in with us, giving routine instructions and updates, we tried everything to scream for help. We begged. We warned them. We told them what we were seeing, what surrounded us. But nothing got through. They either responded with something completely unrelated or didn't reply at all. It was like we were speaking in a language they couldn't hear, or as if the signal was being twisted on its way back to Earth. There was no hope. All we could do was follow the mission plan and brace ourselves for whatever came next. Throughout it all, I kept glancing out the window. I couldn't help myself. The expanse, the eyes, they were always there. And each time I looked, they filled me with dread and something else, fascination. I was terrified, yes, but I was also transfixed. I knew deep down those eyes were watching me, truly watching. Then in the middle of staring out into that sea of red, something flickered across my vision. It was fast, just a blur. For a moment, I thought it might have been a micrometeorite or stray orbital debris. But then another one darted by, closer this time. That's when I realized it had a shape, a human shape. The commander must have noticed the shock on my face because he reached over, tapped my arm, and started explaining. "You saw it too," he said grimly. "Those are what we call the lost spacemen." I repeated, my voice uncertain. He nodded. "Yeah, I remember them from my last mission. Back then I didn't understand what I was seeing, but now it's all coming back. Every so often, They'd drift by the shuttle, sometimes fast, sometimes slow. From the windows and cameras, we could see their suits, torn, damaged, full of holes. Some of them wore gear from old Soviet programs, others from NASA, ESA, even a few unfamiliar ones. Different countries, different eras. His face darkened. I think they were real astronauts, ones who ran into trouble up here, who never made it back. But the same force that hides this place from Earth also erases any memory of them. As far as Earth is concerned, they never existed. A chill crept over me. Are they alive? The commander shook his head. No, at least not in any way that makes sense. We saw it clearly before. Some of them have torn helmets, shredded suits. They should be long dead, but they move. They drift. And when our orbits align, they latch onto the spacecraft. They don't let go unless you force them off. It's like instinct. There are hundreds, maybe thousands, just wandering out here. Forgotten. Lost. I felt a wave of dread wash over me. Thousands of missions over the decades. How many had actually ended like this? How many people had vanished into this hell, wiped from the minds of everyone back home? One of our crewmates behind me spoke up, voice shaky. Why do they do that? Why grab the ships? Do they want to be rescued? The commander was silent for a moment, deep in thought. Then he said, almost in a whisper, "They're hungry." We all turned toward him. I remember one. It got close to one of my old crewmates, he continued. Grabbed onto him, tore into his suit, bit through it until blood came pouring out. They're not looking for rescue. They're looking for food. Silence fell over us like a shroud. Until that moment, the horror we'd witnessed had felt distant. Something we could look at, fear, but keep outside. Now we realized the danger was close, personal. It could reach us. Hours later, we neared the International Space Station. As we approached, I peered through the cockpit window, expecting to see the familiar gleaming structure I'd seen in countless briefings and photos. But what I saw turned my stomach. The ISS looked wrong. It wasn't the clean, modular marvel we knew from Earth. It was battered, almost derelict. Several sections were visibly damaged. Panels were torn open. And worst of all, a dark red blood-like substance coated huge portions of its exterior, clinging to its surface like dried rot. This was not the station we thought we knew. This was something else. Something changed. The inside of the station offered no comfort. Once we docked with the ISS, we were met by the current expedition crew, though met might not be the right word. They looked broken, hollow-eyed, bruised, distant. You could see it in their movements, in the way they spoke. They were barely hanging on. Some bore visible scars, and I didn't dare ask how they got them. The station's layout, its many modules, handles, and docking points, made it a perfect trap for the lost spacemen. They latched onto the outer handrails used for spacewalks, their decaying gloved fingers gripping tightly. Despite being dead, or whatever they were, their strength was frightening. Once attached, they'd stay there and knock, relentlessly. Their banging echoed through the station's thin walls, a dull, rhythmic pounding that seemed to follow us everywhere. Day and night, it never stopped. It wormed its way into our heads, depriving us of sleep, of peace, of silence. There was no escaping it. We stayed there for 15 days. 15 days of forced work. Because even if we didn't want to, our bodies carried out the tasks. Repairs, maintenance, data checks. Our hands moved whether we willed them or not. We had no control. But during the rare moments of downtime, those of us who had arrived on the shuttle did what we could to document the nightmare. We took photos of the blood-red sky, of the unblinking eyes. We wrote down what we were experiencing, on paper, on digital logs, anywhere we could. It felt pointless, but we had to try. Maybe some part of it would survive. The commander, along with other astronauts who'd flown before, warned us against it. They told us it wouldn't matter. Everything you record, they said, will be wiped. And your memories too. Once you return to Earth, it'll all be gone, just like it was for us. But we kept going anyway, not out of confidence, out of hope. If even one message made it through, just one, maybe someone down there would finally understand. After 15 agonizing days, we were finally scheduled to return home. 2 of the ISS crew were coming back with us, and the relief on their faces was unmistakable. For the first time since we arrived, they looked alive again. But not everyone was so lucky. 2 of our own crew members were assigned to stay behind until the next shuttle arrived months later. They didn't speak to us before we left. I don't blame them. I don't even remember seeing them in the hours leading up to undocking. And though I felt sorrow for them, I also felt something else. Relief. Pure, selfish relief. Because I was leaving. I was going back. And even though the fear still clung to me, I couldn't stop thinking that I'd escaped. That I was free of this nightmare. As we deorbited and began re-entry, only one thought echoed through my mind. I will never come back to space. But I did. Because I couldn't remember. As I write this now, I can still remember how eager, how excited I had been to return to space. It's painful to admit that. I wish I could have found a way to warn myself. I wish I had remembered. Back on Earth, I longed to go back. The real memories. The eyes, the lost spacemen, the horror, none of it remained. Instead, my mind had been filled with carefully constructed lies. False memories of awe, wonder, and a fulfilling mission. Looking back, I'm horrified by how real those fake memories felt, how perfectly they replaced the truth. Believing those lies, I threw myself into the work. I trained harder, pushed further, determined to earn another seat aboard a mission to the ISS. I had no idea I was fighting to return to the very place I'd once silently sworn never to go again. Eventually, I was selected for a mission aboard a commercial crew spacecraft. This time, I was going up as a mission specialist, tasked with assisting scientific experiments in zero gravity and helping install new modules to the station's exterior. And it was only after we left the atmosphere, only then, that the truth returned. Like a flood of ice-cold water, the memories came rushing back, the dread, the helplessness, the terror I had buried without even knowing it. Strapped into my seat, the spacecraft climbing into orbit, I stared at the monitor displaying our external cameras, and I saw it again. The sky wasn't black, it was red, a blood-colored void, stretching endlessly in every direction. The eyes were there too, still watching, still waiting. And through the red haze, shadows flitted past the camera, figures in motion. I knew them at once, the lost spacemen. By the time we docked and boarded the station, one thought consumed me, my first spacewalk. I didn't want to do it. I knew what was out there. I remembered now what lurked on the hull, gripping onto the rails, waiting for us to step outside. I knew that stepping outside meant becoming prey, but there was no way out. The same unseen force that controlled us before still had us now. My mind screamed to stop, but my body moved forward. My crewmates, bless them, they tried to help. They saw the fear on my face. Brian Anderson, my EVA partner, did everything he could to delay the walk. The others tried to restrain us, but it didn't matter. Our hands moved on their own. We suited up. Before I knew it, the airlock hatch was opening, and I was stepping out into the void. From within the safety of a spacecraft or station, the red sky and its eyes are terrifying. But out there, floating alone, protected only by a few layers of nylon polymers and pressure foam, it was so much worse. I thought fear would freeze me in place, but it didn't. The force pushed me forward. We began the walk, hauling ourselves toward the equipment scheduled for installation. Each movement felt like betrayal. My arms obeyed their own rhythm, not mine, and then they came. Just minutes into the EVA, we were attacked, 3 of them. 1 went for Brian, 2 for me. Panicked and desperate to escape the approaching figures, I clawed my way along the station's exterior, gripping the hull's handholds and pulling myself as fast as I could. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. I could feel them closing in. In the chaos of the chase, one of the lost spacemen missed a handhold. It slipped, silently tumbling into the red void, spinning away from the station into the endless sea of horror. But the other wasn't far behind, and it was fast. Before I could gain enough distance, I felt it. Contact. A gloved hand clamped onto my leg, strong and unyielding. I kicked and twisted, trying to break free, but its grip only tightened. Shining my helmet light down, I got my first clear look at it. The thing had once worn a Gemini-era EVA suit, now worn and faded, with pieces of the fabric frayed and drifting. The helmet was shattered, bashed open, and inside, behind the jagged edges, was a skull. A human skull. My heart pounded in my chest as the skeletal figure pulled itself closer. With every yank, the pressure on my leg increased, and soon I couldn't feel it at all. It had gone numb. The thing was crushing me. In a panic, I started kicking at its helmet with my free leg, trying anything to get it off me. But in my desperation, I made a fatal mistake. My boot slipped into the hole in its helmet. And then I felt it. A bite. A sharp, searing pain exploded in my foot. The skeletal jaws had clamped down, biting through the layers of my boot, the insulation, and straight into flesh. I could feel the teeth piercing deeper, through skin, fat, and muscle. I screamed. The pain surged through my entire body. My vision blurred. I was losing strength fast. My grip on the station wavered, and I felt myself slipping toward unconsciousness, convinced that this was it, my end. But just as I was about to black out, Brian appeared. He had come for me. Brian managed to reach me just in time. Without hesitation, he grabbed one of the tools we were carrying for the installation, something heavy and metal, and slammed it against the creature's helmet. The blow was enough. Its grip loosened. The pressure on my leg finally eased as the skeletal figure let go, and Brian, acting quickly, shoved the creature with all his strength. It drifted backward, spiraling silently into the blood-red void until it vanished from view. Shaken, we slowly made our way back to the hatch. We didn't speak. The pain in my leg was unbearable, but I was grateful just to be alive. Oddly, the invisible force that had previously compelled us to continue the EVA had vanished, at least for the moment, but it didn't last. The very next day, the compulsion returned with full force. My body moved on its own again, dragging me into another spacewalk, this one lasting 5 grueling hours. I was forced to endure it with my wounded leg, the pain sharp and constant, never relenting. A week has passed since the bite, and things have only gotten worse. The wound hasn't healed. In fact, it's deteriorating. The skin around it has blackened and begun to rot. Whatever infected me is spreading, and our onboard medical supplies are useless against it. My blood seeps out through the open sores, draining me slowly. I know now there's no surviving this, but knowing my fate hasn't made it easier. I'm scared. Deeply, truly scared. Because once I die up here, no one on Earth will remember me. That's the most terrifying part of all. It won't just be my life that ends. It'll be the memory of my existence. Family, friends, loved ones, they'll forget I ever lived. As if I had never been born. That's why I'm writing this, every way I can. First, I've typed this story into a document on my laptop. Second, I've written it by hand in my notebook. And third, now I'm using my own blood to trace these words. With all the blood I've already lost, I figured I might as well put it to use. There's something poetic about leaving a final message in the very thing that's killing me. Do I believe any of these versions will reach Earth? Honestly, no. No message from space has ever made it through, but I have to try. Even if it's a lost cause, hope, however faint, is the only thing that keeps us sane in this place. And so, this is where my story ends. I can feel myself fading, my limbs weaker with each passing minute. It won't be long now. Once my heart stops, the others will jettison my body into the void. And eventually, like the others, I'll become one of them, a lost spaceman. If this message somehow finds its way to Earth, heed my warning. Do not come to space. I found this message written in red ink inside a notebook buried in my personal belongings. The rest of the pages were blank, except for this. At first, I thought it was a joke. A prank, maybe. Something my crewmates slipped into my things as a laugh during our time on the station. But when I asked them about it, they just stared at me, confused, like they had no idea what I was talking about. I don't know who wrote this. I don't know if any of it is true. As far as I know, none of it ever happened. It contradicts everything I remember, everything I know. But still, something about the message haunts me, something about the way it looks. Because the more I stare at the words, the more I realize that isn't red ink.